Hello, everyone. This is Liz, and welcome to Monday. I'm broadcasting live from the Derry Public Library, specifically today, the Derry Public Library teen area. You can actually see the teen sign behind me. And this is actually a fairly good place to be because I am talking about, for our Director Day, director Sophia Coppola, who has made many films starring, and about teen girls. I guess I should say about because I think she casts 20 somethings. Either way, you've probably heard the name Coppola, very famous name. And if you wondered, is she related to Francis Ford Coppola? You would be right. So let's get started. She was born May 14th, in 1971, to Francis Ford Coppola. If you know anything about Francis Ford Coppola and the Coppola family, that is a large family, and they've like all gone into the movie business in some way, shape, or form. So Sophia Coppola grew up around filmmakers in the film industry. So Hollywood royalty, but she also got a lot of accusations of nepotism, which kind of yes, kind of no. She did act in a lot of her father's films when she was younger. She made her big screen debut as a baby in The Godfather. She's actually Michael's son being baptized during that very famous scene. And then she went on to just play a little immigrant child in Godfather Part 2. She also had bit parts in other Francis Ford Coppola films. She was in The Outsiders, just playing a kid. Same with Rumblefish. She was never front and center. Um, she went to private school. She went to Mills College. She had a fairly affluent life, which she acknowledges, but for her, she was always interested in art. She had an internship with Chanel when she was 15 years old. She loved fashion. She loved set design. So, probably because of her background, she saw this as just this is her frame of reference. This is what people do. So, I don't want us to go as far as to say directing is in her blood, but certainly film is. So this is where the world around 1990 came to really know Sofia Coppola. In 1990, she was cast as Mary Corleone in The Godfather Part 3. And she was not the first choice. A lot of people think this was Francis Ford Coppola trying to, make us love his daughter as an actress. But actually, I believe Winona Ryder was initially cast and left the project. And this was really kind of a last minute replacement. And obviously, he had confidence in her, but her performance was not good. It was panned by critics. It got Razzies, and she was fairly young at the time. I think she was 19 years old when she made that movie. And I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I really don't think that performance is good. In fact, around the house, sometimes we'll just monotonously yell, "Dad, Dad." It is kind of so bad it's funny. However, if you're looking at it, taking a step back, imagine how hard it has to be to fail like that in front of everybody and in front of your dad for the whole world to see. So she took a step back after that and she went to the California Institute for Art. She went into a fine arts program, and she kind of stayed behind the scenes. She would still do small roles in film, usually ones that wouldn't require too much speaking, and she'd make little walk-on appearances in music videos. She did some modeling, but she still really liked filmmaking. But she realized, I think I'm going to be behind the camera. I actually remember reading an interview with her where she's just like, oh, it was terrible to read all those reviews, but at the end of the day, I realized acting wasn't for me. So she made a short film in 1998 called Lick the Star, and in 1999, this is probably one of the best directorial debuts you could ever ask for. She debuts with a full-length feature, The Virgin Suicides, which is an adaptation of the Jeffrey Hugonid's book. It comes out to rave reviews. Roger Ebert gives it 4 stars, compares it to Picnic at Hanging Rock, and while it doesn't get a lot of awards attention, it's a better debut than Godfather 3, and a lot of people are, the general consensus is, wow, she is a good director. But there were still people going like, well, how much did her dad help her? So after that, she has a follow-up, and when you have a debut like that, it's always hard to follow up, but she managed to do it, because in 2003, Lost in Translation comes out, critical acclaim, audiences love it, it gets Oscar buzz. She ends up winning Best Original Screenplay for her work, and it's still a movie that a lot of people love, and a lot of people still discuss that ending. What did Bill Murray tell Scarlett Johansson? So she manages to, hit 2 for 2. 2006, she reteams with Kirsten Dunst for Marie Antoinette, and while it's not the hit at the box office, it is well received by critics. And 2010 is where she hits a little bit of a snag with the film Somewhere. That only gets mixed reviews, and a lot of people say like she's starting to focus too much on affluent people. But as she says, she goes, "Look, this is how I was raised," and she basically says she feels that if she went anywhere outside of that comfort zone, it may come across as inauthentic, and she actually wants to make films that are authentic to her. Um, so yeah, I would actually say having seen all of her movies, Somewhere is the one I have revisited the least, although a great performance from a young Elle Fanning, who she reteams with later. 2013, she comes back with The Bling Ring, which is her first comedy, and this is based on a real spate of like late teens, early 20 somethings who robbed the homes of like Paris Hilton. I really don't know who to root for in that situation, but I'm not rooting for Paris Hilton. And she gets a lot more acclaim for this, and people going like, "Oh, there's a lot more comedy in this. She's trying something a little bit new." And great performance by Emma Watson as well, who I think Emma Watson works really well with female directors because she's also fantastic with Greta Gerwig. So I'd love for her to reteam with Sophia Coppola at some point. And in 2017, she does a period piece called The Beguiled, which is actually a remake of a 1971 Don Siegel film, which actually stars Quinlan Eastwood, I believe. And it's a different take on it. She wanted to reimagine this setting and, again, make it more female centered than male centered, as the first movie is. She got a little bit of pushback because the character she cast as Kirsten Dunst is written as a biracial character in the novel, but as she put it, she said, "I would not want to brush over a lot." I think her words were she didn't want to brush over the issues in the movie because that wouldn't be the focus. So she just said, "I'd rather just not touch that rather than kind of leave it hanging." And I can kind of see both sides of the criticism of that, but I think she's coming from a place of I'm just going to stay in my lane right now. And she does have another project coming up. It does say 2020. Who knows if that will happen, but it's called On the Rocks, which rumor has it she's reteaming with Bill Murray. She has done a few other projects since then. If you have Netflix, you probably saw A Very Murray Christmas in 2015. And she actually tried her hand at directing stage work. She directed the opera La Traviata in 2017. So why is she so important? Um, well, I mean, at least, she's obviously talented, so it proves that her success is not just nepotism. But I find her important because she centers women and female stories in her films. And she likes to, as she puts it, make feminine films as opposed to like gritty pictures. So I talked about Kelly Reichardt a while back, and she tends to make very naturalist, realistic films. But she also makes it about women on the frontier, women who are homeless, whereas Sophia Coppola tends to go for more of a softer version of girlhood. But even when she's going for the softer version, she does try to get to the bottom of the pains of girlhood. I think Virgin Suicides is a great example of how just the fact that it was a woman writing and directing it changes the story a lot. So I've read that book as well. And if you don't know the plot, that is a book about five sisters who all end up killing themselves and the boys who reminisce about them. So while the boys are still the narrators in the story, she centers the film not so much around the narrators, but around the girls. And she also does a great subversion of something we see a lot in fiction, which is sort of the mysteriousness of girlhood. This idea of like, oh, girls are so nice and unattainable, and it's like not nice, but unattainable, mysterious to boys. And she kind of shows that yes, behind the unattainable mystery that these boys saw were girls being, at the very least, neglected and emotionally abused by their parents. So I think what she sees in these stories is something that even the original writers don't see. And Jeffrey Eugenides actually said as such. He goes, he loved it as an interpretation of his work because it gave the sisters more of a voice than just being a memory for the male narrators. She also says that she goes, I would like to make movies that I would have liked to have seen as a teen. And granted, she probably grew up as an incredibly cultured teen. But when I hear something like that, I hear a person that respects their audience, that doesn't want to just pander to the lowest common denominator, but maybe challenge her audience or knows that her audience actually wants more than just something silly. They want something with a little intellectual meat on their bones. And usually, and I've talked about this before with teen girls in film, until I would say very recently, a majority of teen girls in media have just been portrayed as either weird loners or shallow girls who just like fashion. And I think she probably, I would think, helped open the door to a more multifaceted portrayal of teen girlhood, which I appreciate. And I'm very glad that I was a teenager when stuff like The Virgin Suicides came out. And, even something like Lost in Translation, which I was I think, a little young for. I didn't quite get exactly what the movie was getting at because I was only 17 when I saw it. But I think having again, this is where people say, like, why does the gender or the color of the director matter? I'm like, well, here is because people have a different lived experience, and therefore, when they're making these movies, they apply that. So, other things that make her important are just a good director. Considering she has a background in fashion, she definitely knows how to make a movie look good. And for me, she, like another contemporary director, Quentin Tarantino, absolutely knows how to music helps a film. The Virgin Suicide score is one of my favorite scores of all time. And she is someone who knows that a good score or a good soundtrack can absolutely change and enhance a film. So, where would I start? I would say watch The Virgin Suicides first. That is my favorite movie of hers. I will also go to bat for The Bling Ring. I think that movie's great. And I do love Lost in Translation. That is one that, as I've gotten older, I like a lot more. And luckily, we have most of her movies at the Derry Public Library, so if you want, you can always call and put a few on hold. So hopefully you'll check one of these out, and I'll see you tomorrow with What's on Netflix.